The Tutor. Riley nervously smoothed her skirt as she waited for the doorbell to ring. At 19, she was starting her first year of college next week, but her parents insisted she get some extra tutoring in math over the summer to prepare. They had hired James, a 32-year-old math professor from the local university, to come to their home twice a week and work with Riley. The chime of the doorbell made Riley jump. She took a deep breath and went to answer it. As she opened the door, she found herself face to face with James for the first time. He was tall and lean, with tousled dark hair and warm brown eyes behind stylish glasses. Riley felt her cheeks flush as she took in his handsome features. "Hi, you must be Riley," James said with a friendly smile. "I am James, your new math tutor." Hi," Riley stammered, stepping back to let him in. "Nice to meet you." As James entered, Riley caught a whiff of his cologne, a subtle, woodsy scent that made her heart beat faster. She led him to the dining room table, where she had set up her textbooks and notebook. "So, your parents tell me you're starting college next week," James said as they sat down. "That's exciting. Are you nervous?" Riley nodded. "A little. Especially about the math classes. I've always struggled with math." James gave her a reassuring smile. "Well, that's what I'm here for. Well, get you up to speed in no time. Why don't we start by going over what areas you feel least confident in?" As they began to work through practice problems, Riley found herself captivated by James' patient explanations and encouraging words. The way his brow furrowed in concentration as he wrote out equations was oddly adorable. When their hands accidentally brushed as they both reached for the same pencil, Riley felt a jolt of electricity. "Stop it," she scolded herself. "Hez your tutor, and he's way too old for you." But as the lesson went on, Riley couldn't help stealing glances at James' strong hands, the curve of his jawline, the way his shirt hugged his lean torso. She tried to focus on the math, but her mind kept wandering. For his part, James remained the consummate professional throughout the 2-hour session. But as he was packing up to leave, Riley caught him giving her an appraising look when he thought she wasn't paying attention. Their eyes met for a charged moment before James quickly looked away. "Great job today, Riley," he said, his voice a bit gruff. "I'll see you again on Thursday." As Riley watched him drive away, she felt a confusing mix of emotions: excitement, guilt, longing. She told herself she was being silly. James was just being nice. He probably saw her as a kid, but a small part of her couldn't help hoping there was something more there. The next few weeks fell into a routine. Twice a week, James would come over and tutor Riley for 2 hours. Her parents were usually out during the sessions, trusting Riley to be responsible. With each lesson, the chemistry between Riley and James grew more palpable. Riley found herself putting extra effort into her appearance on tutoring days, wearing her cutest outfits and spending more time on her hair and makeup. She hung on James' every word, laughing at his nerdy math jokes and finding excuses to lean in close as he explained concepts. For his part, James maintained a professional demeanor, but Riley sensed a shift in how he looked at her. His gaze would linger a bit too long. He seemed to find reasons to gently touch her arm or shoulder. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension. One day, about a month into their tutoring sessions, Riley's parents were out of town on a weekend trip. As James was packing up to leave after their lesson, Riley worked up the courage to make a move. "James," she said softly, "would you like to stay for dinner? I was going to make pasta." James hesitated, conflict evident on his face. "I don't know if that's a good idea, Riley." "Please." Riley stepped closer, looking up at him with wide eyes. I really enjoy spending time with you. I'd like to get to know you better outside of just math tutoring." James swallowed hard, his resolve clearly wavering. "Riley, I care about you, but you're my student, and you're so young, it wouldn't be right." "I'm an adult," Riley insisted. "I know what I want." She placed a hand on his chest, feeling his rapid heartbeat. "Don't you feel it too? This connection between us?" With a groan, James cupped Riley's face in his hands and kissed her deeply. Riley melted into him, wrapping her arms around his neck as the kiss intensified. All the pent-up longing of the past weeks poured out as their lips and tongues danced. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. James rested his forehead against Riley's, his eyes closed. "We shouldn't have done that," he murmured. "I'm glad we did," Riley whispered back. She kissed him again, softer this time. James responded for a moment before gently pushing her away. "Riley, we need to think this through. There's so much at stake. Your education, my career." "I know," Riley said, "but I also know how I feel about you, how we feel about each other. Can't we just enjoy tonight and figure out the rest later?" After a long moment, James nodded. "Okay, I'll stay for dinner." That night was magical. They cooked pasta together, laughing and stealing kisses. Over dinner, they talked for hours, discussing their hopes and dreams, their pasts, their favorite books and movies. It felt so natural, so right. After dinner, they cuddled on the couch watching an old movie. One thing led to another, and soon they were making love with an intensity that left them both breathless and amazed. As they lay tangled together afterwards, reality began to set in. "What are we going to do?" Riley asked softly, tracing patterns on James' chest. James sighed, pulling her closer. "I don't know, but we'll figure it out together." The next few months were a whirlwind of secret rendezvous and stolen moments. To the outside world, James remained Riley's tutor, coming over twice a week for lessons. But as soon as her parents left, textbooks were abandoned in favor of passionate embraces. They were careful to keep up appearances. Riley made sure to actually study and improve her math skills, so her parents wouldn't get suspicious about the tutoring. James maintained a professional facade when others were around. But in private, their connection deepened with each passing day. Riley was swept up in the excitement and romance of it all. She loved the thrill of sneaking around, of having this amazing secret that was just theirs. James made her feel beautiful, desirable, mature. When she was with him, all her insecurities melted away. For James, being with Riley made him feel young and alive again. Her enthusiasm and zest for life were infectious. She challenged him intellectually and creatively in ways he hadn't experienced in years. And of course, the physical passion between them was electric. But moments of doubt crept in for both of them. James wrestled with guilt over the age difference and his position of authority. He knew that if anyone found out, his career would be over. There were times he considered ending things, but he couldn't bring himself to break Riley's heart, or his own. Riley sometimes wondered if she was missing out on typical college experiences by devoting so much time and energy to her relationship with James. When her roommate talked about wild parties or cute boys in class, Riley felt a twinge of regret. But then she would remember the deep conversations and intense connection she shared with James, and those doubts would fade away. As the months went by, they settled into a rhythm. Tutoring sessions turned into dates. They would go for long drives in the countryside, have picnics in secluded spots, or spend cozy evenings cooking dinner together at James' apartment. They shared their hopes and fears, their darkest secrets and wildest dreams. Despite the challenges, they were happy. But they both knew their idyllic bubble couldn't last forever. The first cracks appeared about 6 months into their relationship. Riley's mom started asking more questions about her tutoring sessions, wondering why she wasn't seeing more improvement in Riley's grades despite all the extra help. Riley did her best to deflect, but she could tell her mom was getting suspicious. Then there was the incident at the restaurant. Riley and James had risked going out to dinner in a nearby town, thinking no one would recognize them. But halfway through the meal, one of James' colleagues walked in. They managed to play it off as an innocent tutoring session, but it was a close call that left them both shaken. The final straw came when Riley's roommate walked in on them kissing in Riley's dorm room. James had come to campus to bring Riley some notes she'd left at his place. One thing led to another, and they got carried away, forgetting to lock the door. Riley's roommate was shocked and angry. She threatened to report James to the university administration. It took all of Riley's pleading and promises to convince her to keep quiet. But the damage was done. The secrecy and lies were taking their toll. That night, Riley and James had a long, painful conversation about their future. "Maybe we should take a break," James suggested hesitantly. "Just until you finish school. Give you a chance to have normal college experiences." Riley felt like her heart was being ripped out. "Is that what you want?" she asked, tears welling up. James pulled her close. "God, no. The thought of being apart from you kills me. But I'm worried I'm holding you back, and I'm terrified of ruining your reputation or future if we get caught." "I don't care about any of that," Riley insisted. "I love you. We can make this work." They stayed up all night talking, crying, making love. In the end, they decided to stay together, but agreed to be more cautious. No more risking public outings, no more campus visits. They would focus on building a future where they could be together openly. For a while, things seemed to stabilize. They settled into a new routine of secret meetings and late-night phone calls. Riley threw herself into her studies, determined to graduate early so she and James could be together without complications. James started looking for teaching positions at other universities, somewhere they could start fresh. But the strain of keeping their relationship hidden began to wear on them both. Riley felt isolated from her college friends, unable to share such a huge part of her life. James was constantly on edge, paranoid that his colleagues would discover his secret. The lies and deception started small at first. Riley telling her parents she was studying with friends when she was really with James. James making up excuses to get out of faculty events so he could spend time with Riley. But soon those little lies snowballed. Riley found herself fabricating entire friendships and activities to account for her time. She told elaborate stories about parties and dates, ironically missing out on real college experiences in order to maintain her cover story. The guilt ate at her, but she couldn't bring herself to end things with James. For his part, James started drinking more heavily to cope with the stress. He became irritable and distant with his colleagues, damaging professional relationships he'd spent years building. He was passed over for a promotion he'd been working towards, too distracted by his secret life to put in his best effort at work. The breaking point came the night of Riley's 21st birthday. She had planned to spend it with James, telling her friends and family she was going on a girls' trip to the beach. But at the last minute, her parents surprised her with a huge party, flying in relatives from across the country. Riley was touched by the gesture, but devastated to miss her plans with James. As she plastered on a smile and blew out her candles, surrounded by loved ones, she felt like a fraud. She excused herself to the bathroom and broke down crying, overwhelmed by the weight of her deceptions. Meanwhile, James sat alone in the romantic cabin he'd rented for the weekend, drinking whiskey straight from the bottle. He'd been planning to propose to Riley on her birthday. Now he stared at the diamond ring, wondering if he was ruining her life. The next day, Riley managed to slip away to meet James. As soon as she saw his haggard face, she knew something was wrong. "We need to talk," James said gravely. Riley's stomach dropped. "What is it? What's wrong?" James took a deep breath. "I've been offered a position at a university in California. It's an incredible opportunity. I want you to come with me." Riley's eyes widened. "James, that's amazing. Of course I'll come with you. We can finally be together openly." But James shook his head sadly. "No, Riley, I'm going alone. This has to end." Riley felt like she'd been punched in the gut. "What? No, James, please. We can make this work. I'll transfer schools. We can start over." "Riley, listen to me," James said, taking her hands. "I love you so much, but this relationship isn't healthy for either of us. We're both living lies. I see how it's isolating you from your friends and family, and my career is suffering. We need to let each other go." Tears streamed down Riley's face. "No, I won't accept that. What we have is special, once in a lifetime. We can't just throw it away." James pulled her close, his own eyes wet. "I know it feels that way, but you're so young, Riley. You have your whole life ahead of you. You deserve to experience everything college and your 20s have to offer without being tied down to an older man. And I need to refocus on my career before I destroy everything I've worked for." They talked for hours, cycling through anger, bargaining, and grief. In the end, exhausted and heartbroken, they agreed it was over. James would take the job in California. Riley would stay and finish school. They promised to stay in touch as friends, but both knew it would never be the same. The next few months were some of the darkest of Riley's life. She threw herself into schoolwork and partying to numb the pain, taking stupid risks and making choices she'd later regret. She dated recklessly, trying to recreate the passion she'd had with James, but no one measured up. James didn't fare much better in California. He excelled at work, earning accolades and promotions, but his personal life was a mess. He had a string of short-lived relationships, but couldn't open his heart. He drank too much and pushed away friends who tried to get close. Slowly, painfully, they both began to heal. Riley reconnected with old friends and made new ones. She rediscovered passions and hobbies she'd neglected during her all-consuming relationship with James. By the time she graduated, she felt like herself again, older and wiser, but with a zest for life renewed. James threw himself into meditation and therapy, working through the guilt and regret that had plagued him. He got sober and started volunteering with at-risk youth, finding meaning in mentoring young people in appropriate ways. 5 years after their breakup, Riley and James reconnected at an academic conference. Riley was there presenting research from her graduate program in psychology. James was a keynote speaker, now a renowned expert in his field. As soon as their eyes met across the crowded auditorium, all the old feelings came rushing back. But this time, it was tempered by maturity and perspective. Over coffee, they shared stories of the years apart. They acknowledged the deep love they'd shared, but also the ways their relationship had been unhealthy. They talked through the hurt and regret, offering and accepting forgiveness. In the end, they parted as friends, grateful for the role each had played in shaping the people they'd become. The passion and intensity of their forbidden romance had burned hot and fast, but the personal growth that came from overcoming that heartbreak had laid the foundation for the fulfilling lives and relationships they now enjoyed. As Riley watched James' cab drive away, she felt a sense of closure. Their story hadn't ended the way she once dreamed it would, but she wouldn't change it for anything. It had been a crucible that forged her into the strong, confident woman she was today. She turned away with a smile, ready to embrace whatever new adventures life had in store.